Assalamu alaikum and a very warm welcome from Lahore, Pakistan to our global audience. On behalf of Beacon House School System, the organizer of School of Tomorrow events, I would like to welcome you to A World of Tomorrow from Darkness to Light, the 12th edition of SOT events, which is fully virtual. The nonprofit SOT event series was launched by Beacon House in the year 2000 as part of its CSR and to help inform the direction of the organization, while also engaging global communities in conversations shaping the future of schools and societies. I am Afshan Khalid, Deputy Director, School Evaluation Unit, Beacon House, the host for this session. I have been part of Beacon House since 2011, and it has been a great learning journey for me. It is my great pleasure to welcome you today to this live session titled Digital Detox for Digi-fitness at the 12th edition of SOT events. Please join me to welcome our esteemed guest and presenter, Mr. Henry Platten. Mr. Platten is the CEO of GoBubble, a company on a mission to make the internet safer for all kids. He has worked on online safety and school issues for more than 15 years, winning the prestigious Nominate Award for making the internet a safer place in the process. Welcome, Mr. Henry Platten.
Thank you very much indeed. It's a great pleasure to be here today. And thank you as well to all of the guests around the world who are tuning into this and have been tuning into all of the School of Tomorrow broadcasts from Beacon House. It's my great pleasure, my great honor to be one of the presenters as part of this scheme of work. And today to be diving in, as Afshan's mentioned, into digital detox and digi-fitness and what that means.
Thanks, Henry. So we'll just come back to you, just a few housekeeping announcements and also a little context to today's presentation that I may share. With more children accessing the internet than ever before, it has become imperative to ensure digital safety. The internet and its allied tools are integral parts of our daily lives, but how are they shaping our ability to function as a society? Are these enabling technologies tearing our families apart, or just changing the dynamics of families and societies at large? We are really happy to have a large global audience this evening and look forward to this session, Digital Detox for Digi-fitness, like Henry has just mentioned. And I'm really excited to see what Henry has to share in form of different ways to promote mindfulness in using technology and ways to protect yourself and others. It is a tremendous privilege to have you here with us once again. I request our viewers to share their comments and questions on SOTevents.com website, Facebook, and YouTube at any time during the session. We will take as many questions as we can in the last 15 minutes of the session. On behalf of Beacon House, I also would like to thank our lead corporate sponsor, UBL, for sponsoring and making such events possible. With no further ado, over to you, Mr. Henry Platten.
Thank you very much indeed. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm so delighted to be here and to be sharing through, from my experience, top tips in terms of digi-fitness and what that can look like for all of us. Obviously set within an education setting, because we're talking about the School of Tomorrow, but also as a parent. I'm a father of two. Rocco is 4, Sophia is 8. You may hear them during this broadcast. But then also, as Afshan mentioned, in terms of my personal background, having worked with schools and online safety matters now for more than 15 years, originally as a sergeant in the police, and then since leaving the police, helping children and schools through e-cadets, which is a program that teaches kids online safety. So it's students teaching students, which has benefited more than 1 million children. And now with GoBubble, and we'll touch on some of the aspects of wellness and well-being within that context and within the education context. Very much as we go through today's presentation, any questions that people have, please feel free, as Afshan mentioned, to post them in Facebook and in YouTube, and we will try and address those questions at the end of today's session. Very much with regards to digital detox and digital fitness, I think it's very important within an education setting that we actually frame the context for today, that we actually look at what that means, not just in a pandemic era, which we are at the moment, but also within wider education. When drawing it through to an educational setting, and one of the reasons why digital detoxes and digital fitness are so important in education, not just as school leaders, as teachers and practitioners, but also for us as parents, is that research has shown that from having poor digital health, from having problems that can come through the internet and in particular through social media, that 11 teaching days can be lost in a school every year. And that's having a direct impact on the educational achievement of our children with some of these wider issues that go on. Also, with regards to children themselves, when we then drill down in terms of what does the darkness look like, what are the problems that can come through from digital poor health? Yes, there's loss of sleep. And there's also, as research shows, the parents' number one concern globally, and that's cyberbullying. So there can be lots of problems that can come from poor digital health and what that looks like. And what we're going to be talking about is understanding that, but then shifting that as the wider context of the School of Tomorrow talk, from darkness to light. What are the measures that can take us from the problems and take us into the solutions for tomorrow, but also actually how those solutions of tomorrow can be employed and deployed by us today. So what solutions are out there to be able to help us? Also, when looking at Digi-fitness, it does fall into one of the two areas for the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Obviously, the core Sustainable Development Goal within an education setting is education for all and quality education for all. But in terms of our digital fitness, it also comes back to the third Sustainable Development Goal. That's ensuring that we have healthy lives. The digital world is a massive part of all of our lives, and it's not going away. It's getting stronger. And again, as we've seen during the times of COVID, the role that digital can play, especially within an education setting, can be vitally important for practitioners and parents when these two big, powerful forces come together for the good of the child. And everything that we're talking about in this session today is very much around the good of the child. Yes, there's our own personal Digi-fitness, our own personal health as grown-ups, but the behaviors that we model, the children pick up on. And they very much learn through our experiences as well. So what we're going to be talking about is how all of this can wrap together. Now, one of the main aspects as well that can come through Digi-fitness in particular is safeguarding. Now, I wasn't fortunate enough to be a teacher. My parents were. My dad was a secondary principal and my mum was a primary teacher, which some may say is the reason why I'm not a teacher. So I take my hat off to all educators around the world for what they do. I think you're superheroes. Well, my father, when I was growing up, always used to say that the top priority for a parent when they leave a child in a school's care first thing in the morning is that they're as safe as when they leave them, when they pick them up. And the same is true within the digital world when we're talking about safeguarding. So digital safeguarding is very much a key strain of when we're looking at digital fitness and modeling that good digital fitness for a school and for a child. So actually, how can we do that? How do we move that forward? Well, again, to set a little bit of context in the way that personally myself and the schools that we work with do this. We have, as we mentioned, Go Bubble. Go Bubble at its core is safer and healthier. So one of the key problems that can come through for digital fitness is very much screen time. And it's the quality experience that comes through. Now, it's really important that for us as grown-ups and for the children that we work with and that we care for as parents, that we're modeling screen time behavior in a positive way. And what that means is that when we're actually using screens, that we're using them in a healthy way. So for example, you may have picked up that at the moment, I'm not sat down, I'm actually stood up. And this is one of the reasons why, particularly when I'm working, I will always stand up to use the computer. One, it's healthier for us, it's healthier for our bodies to be able to take breaks between sitting and standing. So it's not good to always sit down, it's not good to always stand up, but to do a mixture of the two. So this is just one of the ways that we can start to think about how we're engaging with the digital world in a healthier way. The other thing is the actual context that we're using a device for. What's the purpose that we're getting from that? And then if you can set screen limits, it's really a good idea. So for example, in GoBubble, it does that automatically. It actually switches off at night, so it doesn't interfere with a child's sleep pattern. Now, it's increasingly important that as we manage our own devices, that we can do the same for children as well. There are ways of ensuring that they're using it for quality and for good, in terms of the context that's coming through the platform that they're using or the program that they're in particular using, but also that we're looking very much in terms of our own behaviors. They see us not bringing a device to the dinner table. They see that we leave devices downstairs to charge overnight. We're not taking them up to the bedroom or areas like that. And they understand that difference between areas of the house where we can use digital and areas where we don't. One of the other important aspects to have a look at when we're talking about how we use the platforms that we're engaging with, when we're looking at Digi-fitness and we're looking at modeling behaviors for children, one of the things that we have to think about is actually how can we model being kind to others? And this is a big transformation process to go through in terms of how the internet works at the moment and actually how we want the internet to work in the future. As Afshan mentioned, one of the awards which we've collected en route with the journey that we've been in within the wider GoBubble team and for me personally is making the internet a safer place. Now, part of making the internet a safer place has to be kindness. So one of the aspects that we actually look at within GoBubble, for example, and this can be done in any platform, but I'm using the illustrative purposes of GoBubble today for this, is that the language that we use, the way that we're using platforms, the kindness that we're showing to others really can help to model positive behavior. Now, we've seen a massive impact from principals who've actually told us that through modeling kindness within GoBubble, it's had an impact at home. It's had an impact in the classroom. It's had an impact in the playground in terms of actually positively impacting on child's mental health in a positive way, but also because it rewards the kindness that you show to others and it rewards the kindness that you give, that this is actually happening offline as well. Now, that's incredible when you think about it, the power of kindness. Now, research has shown that when children are cyberbullied, when children have bullying that's directed towards them, this can have a significant impact on their lives in a negative way. Of every 10 children who are bullied, 3 will go on to have serious problems in terms of for the future with attainment, with grades, with employability. One will have a failed suicide attempt and one will have an eating disorder. So bullying, and in particular cyberbullying, is one of the issues that we really need to get a grasp of when we're talking about Digi-fitness and digital health. And one of the beauties that we've found through GoBubble is because of the way that the platform works, it can actually directly address this at source, and I'll show why and how in a short while. The wider context of safeguarding for us as parents now, and particularly parents who are educators, is one of access. So when we're looking at modeling behavior for our children, when we're looking at modeling behavior for our students, the access that we have and the access that they have, in particular to social platforms, is causing a cyber pandemic at the moment. So almost 78% of children underage use social media. 60% of them have been exposed to risks, and almost a quarter have been exposed to adults and strangers through social platforms. So again, this can cause a big problem in terms of our digital health and the digital health of our children. On top of that, when talking about cyberbullying, this isn't just exclusive for children. 21% of teaching staff have been cyberbullied. So this is a problem that's impacting not just the students in our classroom, where we would automatically assume, but also our teaching staff. So when we come back to kindness, when we talk about the kindness that we can show to others, there's kindness which needs to be shown towards teachers as well as students. Now, all of this comes into a whole school community aspect. One of the things, for example, that I know that at Beacon House, they take so seriously, which is one of the reasons why we're so proud to be piloting Go Bubble with Beacon House at this time and bringing the impact through. So when we look at cyberbullying, there are some different aspects that can come through. Yes, there has been an increase at this time. As Afshan mentioned at the start, because of the pandemic at the moment, there has been an increase in the amount of digital use which has gone on by children and by grown-ups. Sadly, that has seen an increase in cyberbullying as well in some cases. It's also leading to anxiety from students when looking to return back full-time face-to-face within those schools that currently may still be operating on a hybrid or remote learning basis. Some research that I've seen recently has actually said that 46% of children who at the moment haven't returned back to full face-to-face teaching are anxious and concerned about bullying that they may face when they go back into schools. That's global research. Well, this again all comes down to the kindness that we show to others, the whole school community that we can construct and the whole school community that we can then deliver out to others. So what can we do in terms of shifting that forward? Well, I mentioned a little bit earlier about one of the ways that we do this within Go Bubble. And one of the ways that we do this is that, as you can see on the screen at the moment, we have a sophisticated user-generated content moderation system. It actually checks the content in real time, because what we can't do when we're looking at modeling good behavior and what we can't do when we're looking at preventing issues is to push it all onto teachers. Teachers are time-starved. Teachers don't have the access to big pots of cash and funds which are there, but they have the soul, they have the drive, and they have the will that they want to be able to bring these very dark situations into the light. So why should we place a burden on teachers to actually moderate content that children are producing? Why instead don't we look at checking the content automatically before it appears, but then not losing those teachable moments for children to actually help to model that good behavior? And one of the beautiful things that we've heard back from teachers and parents is that when you actually start to do this in a proactive way, it has such a dramatic impact, both on those children who previously may have been bullied, but also on those children who potentially may have been a bully, by giving them those learning opportunities, by showing them the path. One of the things which is at the heart of Go Bubble is such a transformational experience. So one of the key areas that we need to look at when we're talking about digital health and digital fitness very much is addressing cyberbullying. Now, some other practical attempts that we can, techniques and tips, that we can look at when addressing this to move us from darkness to light in terms of cyberbullying is looking at some practical processes that we can put in place. The same is true in the classroom as it would be at home. So depending on the age of the child, there are different techniques that we can look at. One of those that can be used for children of a younger age, under 8, so 8 and below, are things such as worry monsters. So a worry monster can be employed in the classroom and can be employed at home as well. It can be a cuddly toy or a stuffed animal that's brought into the classroom or that's at home. And the children know that if they have any worries or if they have any concerns, they can write it down on a piece of paper and they can pop it into the mouth of the worry monster. Now, this is important because what we're actually teaching children here is that if there's a problem, they can own that problem and they can also own the path to finding a solution. And by doing this, we're giving them positive experiences to enhance their well-being, to enhance their mindfulness, and to give them solutions for the future, because it shows that problems can be overcome when we share and when we talk about them. Now, one of the important things here is that for children to have this track towards a positive digital health is to understand that should they report something through, for example, in the classroom to a teacher, that the teacher isn't going to keep it confidential, but could keep it in confidence. And what we mean by that is that if you tell a teacher, it's not a case that the teacher will simply sit on it and do nothing. The child needs to understand that, yes, the teacher will listen in confidence and then will act on the information that's presented to them. Now, depending on the child and depending on the situation, and again, when looking at older ages, there are different bits of technology out there which can actually help in terms of that reporting mechanism if the worry monster isn't appropriate. But one of the solutions that can come from it is very much a form of restorative justice. So for restorative justice, it's a case of the bully and the victim, if it is in a safe environment and if it suits the incident that's happened and it suits the personalities involved, could actually sit down together. Because the bullies sometimes either are going through immense emotional stress themselves, which is why they're acting out their behavior in this way, or they may have been a bully previously. They may have been bullied previously, sorry. So they may be a victim themselves and they're acting out. So that restorative justice process can be really important, again, to help to move people from darkness to light and in terms of giving them that opportunity. Now, some of the other aspects when we talk about cyberbullying and we talk about kindness really go far wider than that. And when we're talking about digital fitness and digital well-being, one of the key components very much is digital citizenship. Now, digital citizenship, again, has been shown and directed through research as being linked to some of the core competencies for future employability that children have. And these future employability will be things like critical thinking, creativity, a sense of self, a sense of responsibility. So one of the things that we need and we owe to children to move them from the situation that can exist today and can exist in the most recent past in terms of the darkness that can come from digital problems is to give them those safe opportunities to be able to practice, to be able to demonstrate being a good, positive digital citizen. And one of the things that I always subscribe to is that being a positive digital citizen very much comes back to, first of all, being a positive person. And I don't mean by being a positive person that everything in the world is great and that you always look at everything as a glass half full. What I mean is that you are rounded, you are grounded, and that you understand the impact that the outside world can have on you and you can have on it. So very much when we're talking about these kind of processes, things such as meditation, yoga, breathing can all start to give layers of foundations to help us with regards to that. Now, it doesn't matter if a child is very early years, reception years 1, year 2, or if they're aged 15, 16, 17. Breathing can be a very big technique that we need to teach from both sides. I was very fortunate to hear some teachings from an educator in South Africa. And one of the techniques that she was teaching is a breathing hand. It doesn't matter the age that you are, it's a nice technique to be able to use. And literally, you have your hand and you trace, and every time you go around a finger or a thumb, you breathe in, you breathe out. You breathe in, you breathe out. In, out, in, out, in, out. And it is surprising, no matter your age. I'm 44. It works. And it's such a great and easy technique for us to practice day to day. And keeping calm and keeping grounded in this way is one of the elements that then, as I say, can start to layer towards positive digital citizenship. We're blessed that within Go Bubble, with some of the free content that we put out there, we have Wellbeing Wednesdays. We have an educator called Ashley Green, who's based in the UAE, who specializes in mindfulness and actually records these videos for the students and the educators to be able to access for free through Go Bubble, helping to teach mindfulness. The same then also comes through if we see a problem online or if we've seen something that scares or upsets us online. It's always important, again, that we give children the opportunity that they can flag issues that they found. That's really important. It's also really important that we teach children not to retaliate, not to respond back. The only way that we can do this is by layering those skills, by giving talks to the students, by involving them in their own education around online safety, as I mentioned, which eCadets does by students teaching other students online safety, but by doing this systematically, not just for one day in the year or for 1 week in the year, but every time there's a teachable moment, it will then deliver positive impact. The same is also true in giving them these opportunities to be able to engage with technology which is appropriate for their age and which very much helps and guides them through that. Now, one of the other aspects about being a good digital citizen is about being grounded away from devices. So we're really proud, as you can see on the screen at the moment, within GoBubble, between now and the end of the year, we're actually celebrating kindness. And what I mean by that is that by working with educators in more than 68 countries around the world and more than 1,700 schools, what we're able to do is that we can have the opportunity to help and support children as much as possible. So one of the ideas that we came up with was the idea of celebrating kindness. And we were so taken with the feedback from one particular educator in the UK that we decided to take this further. And the idea is that we're actually giving children the opportunity to record the kindness that people have shown them, as well as the acts of kindness they've shown others within GoBubble. And it's amazing when you give something as simple as that, an idea as simple as that to a child, to see what it can do, and also how it can also encourage additional acts of kindness. Now, this all comes back to educational attainment, and you might wonder why. Well, research again has shown that the happier we are, the more open we are to learn. So when we're talking about a school of tomorrow, how important is it that that school of tomorrow is founded and grounded in kindness? Because kindness helps not only increase educational attainment during the years that they're with you and studying with you, but also it helps that wider community. It ripples out. And one of the things that we're that we stress so importantly, that we care greatly about when talking about the Go Kind campaign that's running in GoBubble and is free for people to take part in, is very much showing kindness offline. What have people done in real life to help you and show you kindness? And what have you done to show other people kindness? And really, that's at the heart of everything to do with digital fitness and digital health. It comes down to our own fitness. It comes down to our own health and how we're translating that into a digital world. So I'll give you a great example. So today, I'm in the UK at the moment. So we work globally across 68 countries, but I'm in the UK at the moment. And when preparing for today's session, had a look this morning, just at the presentation, did a couple of final finishing touches, and then had the opportunity to then, after doing that, to take a step away from the device, close it down. I actually sat down with our children and we made some paper Christmas wreath decorations. I then went out and took the dog for a walk to get some fresh air. We then went out to the park and played. And it's all about balance. If we understand that some technology and that some platforms are designed to keep us in and drive us down a rabbit hole, we then understand that actually that's not the product, we're the product. But actually, if we then pick and choose platforms very carefully that we use, if we set out to use a device knowing why we're going to use it, what we want to achieve with using it, and also set ourselves time limits, it means that actually we can achieve so much more and can start to head towards true, authentic balance. Balance that helps us live our lives and that helps children live their lives. One of the great tips as well that I've seen recently, and this is from an educator in Abu Dhabi called Philippa Rathmel. And Philippa, when wanting to take a break from devices, deliberately puts her mobile phone into plane mode. so simple, so inspiring, and it works. So I strongly advocate, if you only take one thing from today's talk, try that when you need to focus on a piece of work, when you need to be able to avoid all outside distractions, put your phone onto plane mode, and you will find it really does work wonders. Also, for those of you who may be Apple users, which I am, both for my device and for my phone, you can set obviously alarms for when you wish to wake up in the morning, but it can also tell you if you want to wake up in the morning at that time, what time you need to go to bed by. And it can give you the warnings then before you need to go to bed about when you need to switch off the device to rest, to relax, and to clear your brain. One of the areas I've been asked in the past about, how do I prepare my brain for sleep, particularly, working in technology. As you would guess, I'm faced by screens every single day. Now, we're delighted that through the work that we do at GoBubble, that GoBubble School is free to join for schools. So we get so much reward and impact from knowing that we're helping so many children. So you would say, well, okay, if you're having such an impact, surely you can sleep soundly at night. Well, yes, but also no, because you're still using devices. And the way that devices do work is they do trigger off our brains. They do get our brains more excited and they get our brains more active. So part of it actually is we need to show that self-care. And I was asked, how do I do that? Well, there's two ways. One actually came from Ashley Green, who I mentioned earlier. I was very fortunate to hear her give a talk earlier this year in Dubai at her school, which is Jess School in Dubai. And what she was suggesting is that when you're actually having a family meal or when you're getting together with friends, one of the things that you can do is to send your phone to a spa day. And what she meant by that is having a small wicker basket, and everybody can just put their phones in the wicker basket, switched off, and just leave them to one side. And she ran an exercise in this talk, which was brilliant. And I always advocate trying this at home if you can, or try it in the staff room next time if you wish to do that. By everybody putting their devices into a basket and putting them to one side, how long can you go before you're wondering what the message could have been about that's just come through? Or how long do you go thinking about the next level of Candy Crush that you want to play? And it's very interesting. We can become so connected to our device that one of the issues that we need to be aware of is that connection that can come through. One of the other important areas that we need to think about is how that can impact upon us. So when they're looking at the phone spa, you said, put it in a basket, put it onto one side, see how you respond to doing that. Very, very interesting. So one which I'd strongly recommend. The other thing which I personally do is Lego. So I try and make sure that at a certain time of the day, the laptops go off and that with the kids, I can play Lego for a good period of time. Now, Lego as well, going back to what we mentioned earlier about cyberbullying, have some great resources which are free at the moment about how Lego can be used at home to spark discussions around cyberbullying. Now, just as I wrap up and before I look to hand back to Afshan for any questions, one of the areas that is really important when we're looking at Digi-fitness and looking at digital health is the behaviors that we have, how we can model those for others, and how we can model them for children. So as I've mentioned in today's session, there's a couple of key ways that we can look to do that. How we show kindness to others and kindness to ourselves offline can have an impact on how we're doing it online. Giving children the opportunity to be able to engage with appropriate digital platforms. So for example, with GoBubble, that is open for school age, not above school age. So it's one just for children. So give them opportunities to engage with platforms which are appropriate to them. For educators, think about our own mental health with some of the matters that we may have to deal with digitally. Are you using platforms that push the burden onto you to moderate, or are you using solutions which are out there designed to help save you time? And then finally, as I say, before handing back to Afshan, that one of the things which is really important is that we need to think about our own personal experience, about how we're living our lives and trying to be the best version that we can. So thank you very much indeed for your time today. Thank you to Beacon House and to Afshan for the opportunity to share just some thoughts. And obviously, I look forward to any questions that people may have that they wish to dive in deeper about digital detoxing and digital fitness. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Henry. I wish you had continued for another hour, because this is the need of the day, and this is it is imperative that we all know what we can do in schools and also at home. And I would like to share here that there's been a massive, overwhelming positive response to this session. I have been receiving messages while you were presenting about what a great topic to choose, and this is something that needs to be discussed more often. So thanks a lot for that. And yes, we do have a number of questions coming our way. So let me just start with the first few that I can see on my screen. So the first question that is being asked, Henry, is how can we help students to safely connect to stop any safeguarding risk?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I mean, obviously, at this time, there's an increasing pressure on children, really, for maintaining those authentic friendships. Talking globally now, that normally they would be able to have in the playground or the school corridor or after school meeting up, with restrictions around the world in different forms, around restrictions on teaching practices, restrictions on play for children. Children naturally are going to be directed to alternatives to try and fulfill those needs. Now, one of them actually that came up in a piece of research earlier this week, week just gone, connected to Anti-Bullying Week globally and to World Kindness Day just before. His research was actually done into Nintendo's Animal Crossing. And it showed, because obviously in Animal Crossing, you can connect with your friends. And the research actually shows that by people playing Animal Crossing, it can improve their positive mental health. So there are some opportunities where normally we may think, well, they're just playing a game, that actually it can have a direct impact through to them. I think in terms of safeguarding, one of the natural tendencies for children is the desire to chat. So, for myself, when I was in school, you'd come back from school and the first thing you'd do is you'd phone your friend who you may have just walked home with. And your parents will be asking, well, why are you ringing them? You've only just seen them. Well, it's that desire that we have to be able to connect and to talk. It's really important as parents that we find something that we're comfortable with and that can support that, and something which is age appropriate. As I mentioned in the talk, one of the things that we're so honored and proud with is that working with Beacon House now in the pilots of Go Bubble, that fulfills that requirement, but with the highest safeguarding practices in place. So I'd say find something that your child is comfortable with, find something that you are happy with as a parent, and make sure you have those channels of communication with you and your child, should there be an issue that they know that they can raise if they're using a different platform.
Yeah, so the keywords here are maintain those channels of communication, right? And
Exactly.
See what works best in your context and according to your value and belief system at home.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, so very well said, Henry. There's another very interesting question here, which I'm going to just read out for you. So what is the best advice you personally do to manage your digital well-being, your own digital well-being? That's a smart question, I must say.
Yeah, I suppose a couple of I've touched on quite a few of them in the talk, but probably to summarize them, it's things such as having a set time that the devices get turned off in the evening, because you don't want to be impacting on sleep. Using the airplane mode on my phone when I don't want to be distracted, because notifications, WhatsApp and things like that can always be pinging throughout the day. So it's knowing when to take breaks and take the break before rest time, using the airplane mode to stop notification distractions. And I think the third is knowing when to take breaks throughout the day. So knowing to make sure that, we walk away from a screen, go and get some fresh air if we can, or just walk to another room away from a screen for a period of time is very good for you, and not just good for your body, but good for your soul as well.
Absolutely. Just last night, I was talking to my son, and we were talking about these different techniques to stay focused. And a very interesting technique that is being practiced a lot is Pomodoro Technique, which is 25 minutes of focused work with, an alarm ticking. And then every 25 minutes, you go for a 5-minute break. You just walk away from the screen, or you walk away from, so that is a good way to detox. So there's a very important question which you may be able to see in the chat window also. Someone is asking, how should parents deal with teenagers going through self-image issues that essentially come through exposure to social media? And this is a very, very important question.
Yeah, and it's one which, as I mentioned, my own children haven't reached teenage age yet, but we have family members, cousins, nieces, nephews, who have gone through this. The toxicity and narcissism that can come through mainstream social media has proved that the big social media players are broken. The system is broken, and it's not one that's there to support and help us, in particular for teenagers and self-image. I think back to my own youth. As a teenager, thankfully it was pre-social media, and I had self-image problems before social media, let alone how it could have amplified it now. One of the really important things is to help young people understand the difference between reality and what's portrayed. And this only comes through listening, through the child knowing that they can come and talk to you without judgments and without you trying to find a solution, which can be the most frustrating things at times. We want to be able to help and give the answers, but sometimes actually a big part is just listening. There are great videos and materials which are out there. I would always direct people towards Sue Atkins. She's wonderful when it comes to child positive mental health and helping to give direction to parents on areas like this. And it's one of the reasons, again, deliberately within Go Bubble, we don't have filters, for this very reason. The use of filters, the use of camera technology tricks to change either skin pigmentation or tone or beauty filters, really, whilst they're there as a game, could actually make other people feel really bad about themselves. And unfortunately, this is an incredibly vicious cycle, and one that personally we're on a mission to try and break up. So I'd say being able there to listen to a child is an important point.
Absolutely. Children should also have that confidence and that knowledge and affirmation that there's somebody who can listen to what they're trying to say, in words or otherwise also. That's very true. You had mentioned about putting your phone on an airplane mode. So there've been, some discussion that is coming our way from there. And someone is asking that with the increased digitized environment, how can we as teachers, students, and even employees deploy putting our phones on the airplane mode? Isn't that high expectations?
I think through communication. So if you can create a culture within your organization or your school or your classroom or your home, if we're talking about parents, where people understand that, yes, you can be available for some of the time, and when you are available, you'll be very much there. But there will be times when you need to focus, and that helps us to be the best version of ourselves that we can be. Now, that's something which I think, as any employee, you would never be criticized. for saying that you want to be able to focus and get the job done. And that means that you have to manage the time. So there'll be certain time where it's in airplane mode, certain times when you're not. For teachers, yeah, again, it's incredibly difficult with all of the pressure at the moment in terms of platforms and pressures. The notification issue can be something which is very distracting. Again, that's why in Go Bubble School, our web platform, excuse me, there are no pings, there's no alerts, there's no notifications in that way to distract. So there are certain things which some developers like ourselves are trying to do to help people. And then the airplane mode is very much a hard fix that you can do yourself. But have that communication before you're going to use that technique so other people know that you're not trying to avoid them. And there'll be a very good reason why. And hopefully that should help.
Absolutely. And yes, it's keeping a balance. And, we just start getting so used to having this gadget in our hands that if we don't check it every 2 minutes, you feel that there's something wrong that you're doing, or you are supposed to do something that you're not doing. Absolutely right. So, keeping in mind the changing landscape of the digital world around us, what challenges do you foresee in the upcoming future for children in this use of digital media?
Yeah, that's a very good question. As you say, the landscape has shifted dramatically. For someone who's been working with schools for so long, working within this arena for so long, the steady build-up and steady proliferation of digital within a teaching environment has been one which has always been there and has been on the horizon. I think one of the sort of biggest takeaways from the virus and the pandemic for the world of education very much has been the emerging and now established role of digital within education. Not one to replace teachers and to replace education, but simply there as an enabler or as a tool in the armory when needed. I think the challenges for kids, it's one of the reasons why personally I'm on the journey which I'm on, is I want to make the internet safer for kids. And I think the problem that can come through with most digital platforms at the moment is that they focus on UX, they focus on the user experience, they focus on UI being the user interface, but they don't have that same commitment, the same drive and passion, for example, that we do and others do around US, and that's user safeguarding. And when I mean safeguarding, we're not just talking safety, as in, can you make something safer? You look at the whole person. So actually, how can you help them to navigate the current digital world they're in and prepare them for the future as well? I think what is going to happen is that there's going to be greater communication between the triangle of teacher, parent, and child to identify those platforms that actually work in the best interests of all three. So actually, we need to empower children to know that they have a voice and they're part of that discussion. They will help to flag through to us as grown-ups then the platforms which are working well for them, the platforms which aren't, and then we can involve them in that debate and make them more critical thinkers.
Thank you. Making them critical thinkers, essentially, that's the need of the hour. There's another question that we have here. How do we empower children to identify authentic content from so much material that is so readily available to this thumb drive? It's just a click of a thumb away.
Yes, yeah. There's always a lot of issues around obviously authentic content, be it fake news, be it images which are being doctored or enhanced, but also kind of a hybrid of the two. Those cases whereby people are taking photos or videos which may have been recorded in a different part of the world or at a different time, but now portraying them through as being live footage from a current news story or something that is active and happening right now. With regards to that, it's part of a bigger education and empowerment initiative, because for children, it's not like you can just give them one poster or one saying and say, there we go, you're now empowered. It takes time. and it takes time by having open and honest discussions with them. So a good example will be the Momo challenge, which and the Momo video on an image on TikTok and Instagram and all of the other platforms that was circulated around about sort of 12 months ago, which hit the world as a big viral sensation that was going on at the time. But it's a hoax. The actual photograph is a piece of art that was created by, I believe, a Japanese artist, I think. But that was a hoax that wasn't brand new. It was a hoax that actually had first occurred about 18 months before that. And it just keeps coming around every so often. And it's like the old sort of ghost stories or myths or urban legends that we always used to be taught as children that you would hear. But when we heard some of those for the very first time, we all thought that they were real until you actually spoke with others and you had more and more opportunities to discover that it wasn't real. The same is true when it comes through with content on the internet now. We can't take it at face value first time. We need to be able to talk those things through. Now, either that can be in social studies or classes like that within a school environment, or tutor time if it enables it, or at home, again, if children know that they have those open communications with parents, sit down and talk it through. I'm not suggesting you go and then Google the Momo challenge to show the image to them, but you can point out how to spot a hoax. Also, one of the biggest things can come through in terms of the success of, for example, of a hoax is always based on us telling other people about it. So, when an incident happens, one of the bits of advice that we always give to schools is don't send a letter home to everyone saying Momo challenge and talking about it, because those children who hadn't seen it will now go and Google it. So actually what you can talk about is hoaxes. There is a hoax going around at the moment. If your child should happen to mention it, please explain what a hoax is, explain it's not true, so you're not missing those teachable moments.
That's a very important message, and something that we need to remember, that to focus on the fact that it's a hoax message and how it needs to be curtailed. Henry, what are some signs of cyberbullying victimization? What might lead you to believe that a student could be involved in cyberbullying? So we have about 5 minutes left, and
Okay.
if you could just help us with this question, and then also touch a bit upon stress, deteriorating mental well-being, which should be a priority, but unfortunately is not. And also a mindset of parents that this cannot happen to our child. It may be happening to others, but this cannot happen to our child. So what are your thoughts on that?
Okay, I'll try and do all of that in under 5 minutes. So without being stressed. So some signs of cyberbullying victimization. So some early warning signs that a child may be suffering cyberbullying will be changes in appearance. So people who are bullied start to take less care of themselves. It will be a gradual but quite a marked change in their behaviors. So, for example, whereas they normally may have been on time and ready for the school bus, they start being late and dragging their heels. If they are active device users, particularly with notifications, whereas previously if the phone had beeped, they would have been straight to it. If the phone beeps now, are they appearing nervous? Are they appearing stressed? Are they avoiding their device altogether? So these are some of the warning signs that can start to show through if a child's being a victim of cyberbullying. One of the things that we actually do in the background of Go Bubble for educators is that we can actually start to track a child's happiness over time, and if that happiness is changing for any reason. Working a similar way to learning behaviors and then making adjustments. It's the same with cyberbullying, that if a child is being a victim of cyberbullying, it's their behaviors that will gradually start to change. So it's just being aware of what those pressures may be. For example, if your child is normally very talkative, are they suddenly very quiet? The other points, Afshan, that you mentioned are, I'm trying to remember now. You asked me what about stress?
Yes, anxiety, stress, mental well-being, and
Yes.
also parents' mindset that this cannot happen to my child, although
Yeah.
it is happening to others.
Yeah, I haven't got the exact figure to hand in terms of the probability of cyberbullying, for example, but it's incredibly high that either your child will be a victim of it, or maybe a person who actually bullies somebody else. So cyberbullying, unfortunately, is something which is a factor of all of our lives because it comes back to human behavior. So part of it, again, is about that importance in helping our children understand kindness, understand the impact that their actions can have on others, but also understand that you're there to listen and help whenever they want. Those three is like a magic combination. But sadly, cyberbullying will invariably happen to either your child or a child that you know at some point in their life, either with them being the victim or even potentially them being the offender.
Very well said. And the last bit now, before we wind up, how can you work on the generation gap between digital natives and digital immigrants to facilitate the learning of digital citizenship?
Yeah, that's a very good question. See, I mean, I think back to my childhood. My first computer was an Atari 2600. Um, Whereas now there's the new PlayStation 5 that's come out and the Xbox X, and it's computers have progressed massively. And I remember a time before social media and before the internet, and not only our students now, but even some of our parents have never known anything else. So for us as educators and as teachers, for some of us, it is very much we've seen this evolution that comes through. The short answer to the generational gap that we've seen, and I can give people the link to the website. So it's called eCadet, so ECADET, ecadet.co.uk. In there, it does show some examples how this can work. So within eCadets, what we've actually had is not just the students teaching the other students, but also the students teaching the parents, and the students going into school leadership meetings with governors and teaching the governors. So because if you give the right knowledge and the right input as part of the curriculum model to help those students learn, so you're giving them the good behaviors, you're giving them the knowledge, but then use them. They're the biggest resource that you can actually have in addressing positive digital citizenship by empowering them in that way. And we've seen that impact benefit more than 1 million children. It's quite transformational. So I'd always involve the child at the heart of all of that.
Yes, child should be at the center of all we do. And child is the heart of the matter. So, as an evaluator, I learned that while I was being trained how to evaluate schools. So it was child is the heart of matter. So always remember that. So
That
that's I think a very strong message. And any parting message, your last bit of advice, Henry?
I think that the last bit of advice is not to worry. Don't feel that you're on your own. This is, it's we're talking about one of the biggest problems that can impact a child throughout their life. But know that there are measures, there are approaches that, when given the time, can help children to flourish and actually help them to have higher levels of attainment and success in their life by giving them that nurturing environment. Something which I know that Beacon House cares greatly about and values immensely.
Thank you so much for that. And yes, at least we have started, and there are high hopes that things will work out for everybody. This brings us to the end of this extremely enlightening and engrossing session, the presentation as well as the discussion. So it was really very interesting also. And I'm sure our viewers must have enjoyed it as much as I did. So thank you once again, Henry, for being here with us. And before we end, I would thank our corporate sponsor, UBL, for sponsoring this event and making it possible in these hard times. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much indeed.